Hello everybody, we're back and continue on this conversation about leadership. So leadership is influence.
Yep.
Leadership is influence of people. The first person to influence is yourself. And in influencing people, you need to understand your values and how you impact people's feelings. And what we want to do now is talk about the possibilities and the potential for a leader that you see that is often invisible to others.
I think this really distinguishes it. You know, we talk about a lot of the cool businessmen at the moment that are at the top of the tree. But even your average businessman, normal like me and you, in the street, I think that's what sets them apart. They get into business, and we call them entrepreneurs, but to me an entrepreneur is that person who sees that potential, that possibility that other people are going, are you sure?
Absolutely.
And they're going, absolutely, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So, you know, we are currently in an age of disruptive technologies.
Oh, yes.
I mean, not just digital. I mean, in any dynamic, we're living in an age of disruptive technology. We're living in an age of leaders who can see the invisible and bring the invisible into the present.
Absolutely.
And I just love new apps, what they can do. You know, I use one called Feedly that puts content in there for me, that I can go there to the content that I want to read. I can make it very specific, and I can go and read my content. And the resources that I then have in there for me to grow and develop as a person, and somebody's thought of that. And I love that. So my job as a coach, and I did this yesterday, I do business audits. So business audits are short periods of time. I meet you 3 times, and we come up with a strategy that you can implement straight away. And most times that happens in the first session, and then we're building that. So I've given that to a photographer. I've given him this first set of you need to do, and I saw him today and I said, are you doing your homework? And he said yes. And so as a coach, I listen. And because I'm a leader, I understand leadership is influence of people, and I've worked on me, and I can say in the mirror who I am. I'm confident about that space. And it's taken me a while to figure that out, but I am. And when I finished the meeting, he went bouncing out of the room. I mean, he came in slumped, you know, a little bit bowed down like that, you know, a little bit downcast. The end of the meeting, you know, he was quite excited about the possibilities, because I helped him begin to see the invisible, the possibility and potential. And he said this to me about one idea. He said, I've never thought of that idea, because he had the people, he'd never put the concepts together. And we as leaders, we release people into their potential when we see the possibilities and potential of a situation. We see the invisible, and we bring the invisible into the present. And it's so much fun.
So as a leader, what you're saying is, because you can see that potential and those possibilities, you're actually coaching your people around you, you're influencing them. You're actually creating the influence by empowering them to see that potential and that possibility themselves.
Because we know from research, and I know I've said this a few times, that it tells us most people that are in and around our businesses are only operating at 30% capacity. They're operating at that level because we fail them as leaders. We're failing to see the potential and possibilities of the invisible in and around their world, and we blame them for ineffectiveness. And so we have this expectation, this is the reality that they're operating, and we see them here, they're operating there, and it's called disappointment. And we continually put the disappointment message on them, and we wonder why they don't improve, why they even seem to go worse. Is because the influence we have is a negative influence, and it's actually causing them to be worse, not better. We are the problem, not them. And when we flip that, whether you do an assessment or you sit down and talk to them, just have a regular conversation with them and listen to their world, the amazing change you can do and bring about dynamic change to see them lift and become positive and move from 30% effectiveness to 50% or 60% or 70%. It is inside of them. What we fail to do, which is then the failure of our leadership, is we're not influencing. We haven't recognized, and we project our problems onto them. We see them as being ineffective, and so it's a double-edged sword, and everybody loses.
So when you're when you can see this potential, and that's, I suppose that's a skill set to build and growing yourself and see the potential and see these possibilities for these people, then what you're trying to do is influence them so they can see it
for themselves.
It was interesting that I was reading a report from a manager and the way he deals with reports that are given. When he reads a report, he won't criticize anything that's not important. So he doesn't care how bad it is. He goes, well, that's terrible. Is it important to the final decision? No. So he ignores it. He's only looking for the things that are actually important to the final decision, and they're the only parts he assesses. And I thought, wow, how many times do we beat people up on the things that don't matter?
Absolutely. So many times we do that, and we use this. We make mountains out of molehills.
Great.
And we focus on the minutiae rather than the macro, and we misplace the emphasis. And so instead of having the emphasis in the right place, we have the emphasis in the wrong place. And so what did you just say, John? That's what you just thought. What, because we put the emphasis of the emphasis in the wrong place. And it has a different meaning and different import and strength to it, and you've really got to wrestle with it because the message becomes unclear. And so when we understand the power of our influence on ourselves, we've sorted, and now we're beginning to work with, and please don't try to work with everybody. And this is what I want to encourage leaders to do, is to work with the people that get the message. And it might be that people get this message, but these people get that message, and these people get this message. So you work with them to their capacities and not trying to do the same thing with everybody.
Because everyone's different, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Totally. And I suppose by recognizing people's individuality and by focusing on what's important to them, you raise that person's self-significance so they feel better about themselves. And this is another thing I've found with leaders. Great leaders always, listen to your idea. Now, even though they can't perhaps use your whole idea, they'll attempt to show you how the reason you express idea or how you express, they were able to either use it or it influenced them to do it a certain way. They're trying to say, this is your contribution and look what it did.
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
And I think we need to understand that there is diamonds in the rough, in our workplace, in our staff, in the environment that we live, and yet we see them as rough diamonds that are hard to work with. Well, a diamond is hard to work with, and it takes skill, and a good jeweler will often look at a diamond that's in the rough for months before they attempt any cut, because they want to assess all the parameters that are going on within that diamond from every angle, and it takes a lot of time to assess. And sometimes we jump to conclusions too early about this possibility and potential, and we misread because we rush because we're looking for fast results quickly, and yet if we take a 10-year worldview about where our business is in 10 years' time, I've got 10 years to work in this dynamic. I've got 10 years to help this person grow. I've got 10 years to see the possibilities and potentials be realized. I've got 10 years. It changes the whole perspective rather than the urgent and the important and the fires that seem to be burning brightly in front of our eyes that are distractions and cause us to be ineffective. We step back and we slow down and we think more strategically and we look at the potential and possibilities in these people that are in and around our world at all sorts of levels. It changes how we influence, and we are far more strategic about how we go about doing that. And it's far more exciting.
The patience of leadership.
Oh, yes.
The patience of leadership.
Yes.
You actually lead quicker by being patient.
Let's take that one step further. You lead quicker by walking slower.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So think about that.
I'm going to write that down.
That's a John Hardy special.
I was going to make it a Michael Worthington new book title.
No. Of course you can, Michael, but it's attributed to John Hardy.
I'm sure you can squeeze that in. It's in the fine print. Shall we take a break?
We shall take a break, and we'll be back in just a while to wrap up. Thank you so much.